wanted to talk about something that happened the other day. And that thing I want to talk about is Michael Venom Page, MVP. So I heard that Fabian Edwards, Leon Edwards, I'm a big Leon Edwards guy. I heard his brother was fighting, and it was a decent fight. So they do this thing where I'm a European soccer fan. All the stuff happens in the morning, like all the games happen in the morning. I get it. So apparently Bellator plays it on tape delay. What are you gonna do? So around that time, I thought every time Bellator is a card, it's like impossible to find. Like what time I go on the app, it's even more confusing on the app. And and anyways, so sometime between the college football being over and the hockey game starting was a window of period of time where I flipped over to Bellator. I did find it on tape delay. It turns out I missed the Fabian Edwards fight. That turned out to be a controversial split decision. I wish I saw that. Now, I'm biding my time before the hockey game starts, and I see MVP is fighting this Italian guy. Now, if I knew his name, I don't. You wouldn't gain anything from me telling you it. This guy is not. This guy is showing up for a paycheck. Short notice. Didn't look like he wanted to be there. And if you had the intelligence that God gave a goose, you could realize in 2 seconds this is who's going to win this fight. The announcers are saying this guy he doesn't even have a game plan. Uh, MVP is MVP is just strutting in, doing his coming out with a rapper and stuff, and you could tell that this show is just an MVP hometown. He's going to knock the guy out show, which MVP has been taking a lot of heat online for because a lot of people are starting, at least fight fans, which now let's not forget here, fight fans represent about 15% of the marketplace. So when people complain about like Dana White like booking McGregor or something, or people complain about Bellator booking MVP versus a nobody, a sacrificial lamb, an Italian sacrificial lamb is who we fought in, I think it was at Wembley in London. What people forget that I'm not the target audience for this fight. Uh, Someone else is. One of my friends is, or they're trying to spark that casual audience because that's how you become possible. That's how you make money and get more viewers. Guys like me don't pay the bills, Bellator's bills. That's why they had Kimbo Slice and the other Street Fighter who had a heart attack in the ring. Like they try to put on these fights to get the viewers. But so what happens? He knocks him out in the first round. Whoop-de-doo. He does this little thing where he presents his lead leg, and he pulls it back and follows it with the right hand. Knocks him out. He didn't knock the guy out. The guy didn't want to be there. I don't like watching that. I wasn't there to watch that fight. I tuned in. Maybe this Italian guy who I had no idea who maybe he could win somehow. I don't know. I stuck around until the hockey game started. Anything else? So yeah, the MVP does this thing. He's like the black Wonder Boy. He has this karate point fighting style. He presents his lead leg when the other guy goes to kick. He follows that kick with the right hand. He's done that multiple times. Now, the heat about MVP, people are complaining and people are just basically not tuning in to watch him because nobody really wants to see such a one-sided fight. At least in the MMA community. Maybe some of these boxing fights that I watched, like I watched the Wilder Ortiz fight the other day, and they had some one-sided fights on the prelims. But in general, in mixed martial arts, you don't want to see you want to see someone a competitive fight. So MVP, I have something to say about MVP, but before I do that, let's revisit that Douglas Lima fight. Because he did that same presenting my lead leg, wait for that lower calf kick. And honestly, it's a beautiful technique because in the past 5 years, you have to appreciate the way the sport evolves. And in the past 5 years, that lower leg kick has become such an issue that the sport is evolving around it. Now you have to appreciate MVP trying to think about that leg kick and figuring out a way to evolve around that people spamming that lower leg kick. I just appreciate that aspect. But In that Douglas Lima fight, he baited that lead leg, waiting for that right hand. Douglas Lima knocked him off balance. He threw that right hand, from my memory. I believe he threw that right hand, and as he was getting up, Douglas Lima separated him from his consciousness. So that is the black cloud around MVP, is that when he fights, the way he wins versus the Italian guys who, it could be the Italian guy who took it on short notice, and then what happened when he got knocked unconscious versus Douglas Lima are so far away from each other that it's hard to remove the stigma around MVP of, well, he can't beat a top guy. It's just it's hard for anyone who has a reasonable eye on watching this. It's hard to, when you think about MVP, what you think about is, oh, he loses when he fights real fighters, and then he knocks out these people who are not even close to his skill level. But the point I wanted to make is that MVP is a very talented fighter. In that Douglas Lima fight, I don't like MVP. It's just the way he knocks these guys out. It's really hard for me to like a guy who just continuously accepts these fights and celebrates in the fashion that he celebrates. He fought a librarian in Dublin the other day and had to be pulled off of him after the fight. I'm not a big MVP guy, but MVP is very talented. MVP was beating Douglas Lima in that fight. Before he lost his balance and just had his lights put out, MVP was winning that fight against Lima. He stunned Lima with a right hand, and you know what he did in that fight? Lima did take the fight to the ground. He just controlled his wrist for like 4 minutes in the guard position. I've never seen anything like it. Like, Lima couldn't do anything. So MVP is a very talented fighter. Now, the other progression to what I wanted to say is, no chance does he deserve a fight with Douglas Lima. Douglas Lima, he called out Douglas Lima, thankfully, because I don't know who else he could fight. But he called out Douglas Lima after he beat the Italian guy in Wembley. And Douglas Lima later said, no, you don't deserve to fight me. That's verbatim. I don't know. That's basically what he said. You don't deserve to fight me. And he's 100% correct. Douglas Lima is the champion. He won the tournament. MVP lost the tournament and then has been fighting people who do not have the same skill level as MVP. So Douglas Lima is absolutely right. You don't deserve to fight Douglas Lima. You know what would be a very interesting fight? How about a rematch with Paul Daly? Paul Daly tried to use his wrestling, and it was a 5-round fight. I'm not too familiar with Bellator's roster beyond as to the question is, who was a good fighter for MVP to fight next? Now, the only two guys I'm thinking of are Douglas Lima and Paul Daly. Paul Daly was on the commentating booth and saying, I want to fight him next. I want that fight. Douglas Lima basically said, you don't deserve to fight me. Both those guys are correct. And Paul Daly's the next fight, and I will tune in for that. I will not tune in if I won't tune in if MVP is fighting a guy I don't know. It's just the charade is over. You got to give this guy someone to fight. It is what it is. Paul Daly is next for MVP, and MVP, do not buy into this whole thing where MVP isn't good because he doesn't fight anyone. MVP is very good. We'll see how he does against Paul Daly.